divines, go ahead and go get you a notebook, a pencil, or a pen and get ready to see me throw down in the kitchen. I did all my prep work the day before, and the chicken has been marinating overnight. So here you see that I'm drizzling just a little bit of oil. I did mix some olive oil with regular vegetable oil for this. So my family absolutely loves West Indian food, and it has been a long time since I have, did my thing. So I decided, let me go ahead and treat them. So here I'm just getting the oil ready, nice and hot for my chicken wingettes. Now I'm a little old school. I will drop my recipe down below. It's not going to have any measurements. So now my oil is nice and hot, as you can see there. And I'm putting my chicken wingettes in that pot there just to brown the wingettes. I do have a nice large pot that is a lot larger than that. But since I wasn't making such a substantial amount of curry chicken this particular go around, I decided to just do batch brownings here for my wingettes, as you can see. So just go ahead and toss in the rest of the chicken for this particular batch and brown it up. Obviously, you're going to keep an eye on it. You don't want to burn it. You just want a nice golden crust. And this also starts the cooking process. So you're probably wondering, what is on the menu exactly? So we have curry chicken, cabbage, and of course, rice and peas. I mean, if you ask me, there is absolutely no West Indian dish that is complete without the rice and peas. As you can see here, I'm using my tongs to turn the chicken over to get the other side nice and golden brown and to finish the cooking process. Anytime I cook curry chicken, I always pre-prep and marinate at least a night, overnight. Here's what I use for this particular batch of curry chicken. Onions, scallions. Yes, scallions. I know scallions are onions. Potatoes diced. Tomatoes cut into quarters. Fresh thyme. Lots of curry. Those little jars of curry seasoning is not going to be enough. However you season your chicken, a habanero pepper, bell peppers, and I usually put carrots in it, but I forgot this particular batch. So my first batch of chicken was browned, and I put it in the bowl that you see there on my stove. My heat was up a little too high. As you can see that this chicken here got a little darker than what I like. It's okay. It is okay. It's not burnt. It's just a little darker than what I usually do it. And obviously, that's an easy fix. Turn the fire down. So I just continue the browning of the chicken until the very last batch is nice and brown. And I transferred all the chicken to the bowl that you see there on the stove. Now, periodically, you may need to add more oil. If you do, just add a drizzle. Oh, and those little burnt or brown giblets there in the bottom, leave them. Don't wash them out. That's what's going to add more flavor. I'm coming down to the last bit of my chicken winglets, but check out the crust on that. So that's the coloring that you want to have. Here are the last few pieces of chicken that is being browned. And now I'm going to wipe those little giblets into the bowl with the chicken and transfer my chicken to a larger soup pot. Before I do that, check out that golden goodness. Now I pulled out my larger pot, as you can see there, and it has some olive oil in there. I'm going to get that olive oil nice and hot. And once it gets to a nice hot temperature, I am going to add in my curry powder. Now remember, I told you that you need a significant amount of curry powder. I get my curry powder from an international type of grocery store. But you can see I'm sprinkling in the curry powder. Think of like when you're getting ready to make gravy from scratch. So the curry is the flour, and of course you have the oil. What you want to do is put the curry into the oil and brown your curry. As you can see, that's what I am doing now. Obviously you stir it up because you don't want it to burn. You can see how quickly it actually browns. After it browns to about this color, you're going to start adding in your chicken. Now, of course, you know I use wingettes. You can use any other kind of chicken that you want. However, if you use a larger chicken like a chicken leg or a thigh, be sure to cut it into smaller pieces. And now I'm just putting my chicken wingettes into this large soup pot. Here I'm adding the rest of my chicken. As you notice, I have not added in any of those vegetables that I told you before. And yes, go ahead and scrape all that goodness out of the bowl. You may be wondering, how is that chicken going to cook? She didn't add any kind of liquid. Hold your horses. Here we go. So you're going to have some chicken broth or stock and add it to the pot. But don't add a lot because the chicken is going to make its own sauce, or more like its own liquid. So you just add a little bit of the chicken broth or stock to the pot. But here you can see I'm just stirring up the chicken to make sure that the curry that I browned before is not sitting on the bottom burning. Once again, I don't measure anything. I let my ancestors guide me. Put a little here, a little there. And I encourage you to do the same. After you added the stock, you're going to put your vegetables on top of the chicken. Do not, I repeat, do not stir it up. Once all the veggies are added to the top of the chicken, you're going to simply cover, bring the chicken to a boil, and once it comes to a boil, you will turn it down to a simmer and let it cook. Believe me, the veggies will cook, so no worries about the potato. Now, I am a firm believer of utilizing the things that you have in your house when you're cooking. But when I am cooking West Indian food, this is a dish that you're going to probably have to go to the grocery store to get the items that you need. Now, sometimes you may find that your store doesn't have fresh thyme. You can use dry thyme. That's fine. The only thing to this is to always have potatoes, because potatoes is what makes the gravy. The potatoes thicken up the sauce. So never, ever, ever make curry chicken without potatoes. Okay, enough of that. So you can see here how the chicken has made its own juice with just that little bit of chicken broth that I put in there. Now I'm going to turn my stove down and let it continue to cook. And we're going to move on to the next dish. What you'll need for this dish is allspice, salt, bay leaves, a habanero pepper, thyme, coconut milk, broth, kidney beans, and rice. I didn't have any allspice, so I made my own. Cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves. Oh, and I almost forgot, you need onions, scallion, and fresh garlic. So I have this apparatus that will chop onions in no time. Don't even have to worry about the crying. It is literally called the chopper. Mine is pretty old and I got it from Pampered Chef many years ago. Here it is here. Very easy. Just check out how it chops these onions. Voila, chopped onions. And I just finished off the rest of the onion and transferred it to a plate that I have there. Next, I'm going to move on to my garlic, and I have a garlic press there. Another great thing that you should have, and that is also from Pampered Chef. You know, they do make others, choppers and garlic press. Now, I literally put in the garlic clove that is still in its skin, put it in that press, and it will press out without the skin. Then once I've pressed it, I will open it up, take the skin out, and continue to do that for the rest of my garlic cloves. And that's me there taking the skin of the garlic out of the press. Super simple. I don't have to chop garlic and my fingers smelling like garlic for the next 3 days. And lastly, I am going to just slice up my scallions, and I will transfer them to the plate as well. If you prep your items prior to starting a dish, you'll find that it'll be a more smoother and cohesive flow while you're making that particular dish. For this particular rice and peas, I decided to use canned kidney beans, and it works just as well. And obviously it takes less time. So here I am just adding a little bit of butter because those veggies that I chopped up before, the onion, the garlic, and the scallion, I will be adding those to this pot. Don't have any butter on hand? Yes, you can use a bit of oil. That is totally fine. I've added in my veggies, and now I'm going to add in my seasoning and mix it all together and allow the onions to get translucent. Here I tossed in the habanero pepper. And I forgot to mention that is a hot pepper, so you only need a little bit depending on your spice level of tolerance. Or you can even opt to not have that in your dish at all. In my curry chicken, I only had about a pinky fingernail size chopped up in all of that chicken that I had. And I found that it was perfect. Once again, it is not necessary. Now that my veggies and spices are cooked, I pulled out that habanero because I really didn't need it, but I just tossed it in there for just a little bit of spiciness. And here comes the liquid. And as you can see, there is a can of coconut milk there. I will add some more, and then I add in my chicken broth or stock, whichever you prefer. Here I'm just adding in some more coconut milk. I didn't do the whole can. The original amount of coconut milk that I had was not going to be enough for this amount of rice and beans that I decided to cook. After I added in all of my liquids, I added in my beans, as you can see here. And those beans were canned beans, once again, drained canned beans. Once all the liquids are in and the beans are in, you give it a nice stir. Once this comes to a boil, you'll add in your rice. And obviously, you're going to give that a quick stir. Once it's all stirred, you bring it back to a boil, cover it, and let it do its magic. Traditionally, when you're cooking rice, you don't want to disturb it. Take the lid off and stir it. However, when I am cooking my rice and peas, I periodically will stir it just to check and see if I need to add a little more stock or broth. Because, baby, there is nothing like some crunchy rice. No, we're not doing that over here. The rice and peas is done, and I just transferred it to the back eye. And of course, y'all, clean your stoves in between cooking. Just do it. All right, so now we are on to our cabbage. A sharp knife is a safe knife. So in other words, we're not going to use those 20-year-old knives from back in the day that hasn't been sharpened since you were a kid. Or if you have that skill of knowing how to sharpen a knife, be sure that all of your knives are sharpened. So once again, I am prepping my items before I cook, for that nice, smooth, and cohesive flow as I am cooking. One thing I'm not going to do when I'm cooking cabbage is leave out those beautiful dark green leaves. Yep, we're going to get them in there too. Right here is when I remembered, hey, you haven't taken your ashwagandha gummy. Ladies, when you become of a certain age, you don't want to forget your ashwagandha. Finally, let's cook up this cabbage. Here I just have a pan that I am heating up some oil, and I'll take my cabbage and just toss it in there, making sure that I break up the larger pieces so that it all cooks evenly. Yes, I can feel you asking, well, what kind of seasoning did you use? Tony's is my go-to seasoning for almost anything. Actually, right now, for anything. Next up, I use a little bit of garlic powder. Not salt, powder. You don't want to use garlic salt because the Tony's already has the salt. And lastly, a little bit of curry powder, to keep it along the West Indian theme. I'm not sure if you noticed that I had one layer of cabbage and now I'm layering the others. And in between the layers, I do my seasoning. So you have to be real mindful of your salt that you're seasoning with. But I like my stuff well seasoned. What can I say? I'm a Southern gal. Now that all of the layers of cabbage are in, I just stir it up so that all the seasonings marry, and my cabbage is actually frying. So we're having fried cabbage because at the beginning I did put a little bit of oil, which you should have seen, and I just stirring to make sure that they don't stick to the bottom and or burn. The cabbage has gotten that caramelized look, and I just cover it up and turn the heat down and let it finish cooking. And here is the final product. Unfortunately, I was so ready to eat this meal that I forgot to take a picture of my plate. But anywho, go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell.